Welcome, Byron. Nice to see you again. So you are from Liverpool.
Yes, I am. Born and bred.
Liverpool has a very, very special place in my heart because I was a massive Beatles fan. In fact, I still am. I was born and raised in America. And growing up in America, when the Beatles hit the scene, it was unbelievable the impact they had in America and the impact that they had on me personally. And it's one of the reasons why I always wanted to go and live in England. And fate has been kind to me, and I have been living in England for the last 50 years. And
Wow.
partially it is because of the influence of the Beatles. Because for me, they were a breath of fresh air, and it was not just their accent, it wasn't just their haircuts, it was their style, and they were so completely irreverent. They were always goofing around and having a good time and laughing, and it was a complete breath of fresh air.
I think what they showed was that they were proud, to be from Liverpool. That's what I think came across to people. They actually promoted the city as well as themselves.
It's funny because I've met some Liverpudlians, and as far as they're concerned, there are two types of people in the world. There are Liverpudlians and there are non-Liverpudlians.
Yeah, I think Liverpool would probably like to be a country on its own.
Yeah, it's called UDI, unilaterally declared independence.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Liverpool when the Beatles hit? How were the local people in Liverpool affected by the Beatles?
Can I put some context to this? When you think about my age at the time, 63 was probably the time when they really hit. Prior to that, obviously they did Love Me Do in 62, but in 63 it really hit. Now, I was, 9 getting on for 10 at the time. Now, what you have to remember is Liverpool is a very cultural city, musical city, but it's also a football city. Now, I was very into football. I loved football. So we had two major teams, Liverpool and Everton. So we really had it going on. And it was very important, especially to the lads. Football was the thing. So the thing that struck me at the time, musically, was when Jerry and the Pacemakers came out with You'll Never Walk Alone. And that was adopted by the cop in Liverpool. That was the first big musical thing that came to me, and that was in 63. Remember, this is when the Beatles hit as well. Yeah. Now, I'm 9, nearly 10. So from that point of view, did I know very much about the Beatles in a normal everyday sense? The answer is probably not very much, other than if you were listening to people who might have been to the Cavern Club, because the Cavern Club, I think, had 292 appearances of the Beatles, something like that, between 61 and 63, and about 350 people could fit in there. So you're not talking about a lot of people seeing it, but I could tell that people thought the Beatles were heading somewhere. Do you know what I mean? There was something about them. Yeah. Now, the first time I saw the Beatles myself was on TV. It was on Granada, and I think they might have done Love Me Do on that. And I remember thinking, wow, these are different, but still mindful of the fact that Jerry and the Pacemakers had Never Walk Alone. So sort of, a bit torn, you know what I mean? But yeah, and the thing that surprised me then was to hear that people were saying that the girls had really, really taken to it. I mean, apparently in the Cavern Club, that was the start of what I think people termed as Beetlemania. The reaction of the girls in the Cavern Club, apparently in 62, there's a particular night that's recorded that they went absolutely mad. And it was amazing to hear that this was going on. But the thing that mattered most, I think, to us at the time was that they came from Liverpool. So it's like you claim them, don't you? Because they are Liverpudlian. They're from Liverpool. They're a Liverpool band. They're promoting the city. What's not to like?
Yeah. To bring this back to Angelina Jordan, I was thinking that the way I reacted to the Beatles at the beginning of my life and the way I have reacted to Angelina Jordan towards the end of my life, I was thinking of comparing those two. Because when I'm a teenager, you have the energy to be thrilled in a certain way. But when you get on in years, you don't have quite the same energy to be quite as excited as you were as a teenager. But partially, it's also the difference in the musical style. You know, the Beatles were more like rock and roll and in your face. Angelina Jordan, by comparison, is much more subtle. You have to listen to her and hear the subtlety and the tone. And so there's that. But the Beatles affected my outlook on the world. It made me immediately fascinated by all things English. But Angelina Jordan is she's changing my outlook emotionally. She changes how I feel, and she changes my relationship with people. It's completely different level. Shall we listen to a couple of songs that both the Beatles and Angelina Jordan both covered? Let's listen to those together. Then why don't you talk us through what you hear in terms of the Beatles and what the song means to you, and also Angelina Jordan. Okay, Brian, so first we'll listen to Yesterday, both first by the Beatles and then Angelina Jordan, and then we'll have a chat.
Okay.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Suddenly, I'm not half the man I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday came suddenly.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Suddenly, I'm not half the girl I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday came suddenly.
What do you think of that, Byron?
When you look at the first one, you look at the Beatles. I mean, I remember the Beatles performing at the London Palladium.
For our last number, I'd like to ask your help. Would the people in the cheaper seats clap your hands? And the rest of you, if you just rattle your jewellery.
I don't know whether you remember that.
I remember when they performed at Shea Stadium.
Yeah, well, the London Palladium, not the sort of place you'd imagine someone like the Beatles performing. You know what I mean? It was not the kind of place that you would think like a Royal Variety performance. I would imagine Paul McCartney probably wrote that himself. I know they say a lot of songs, I mean, you know, they say a lot of songs are Lennon McCartney, but you can tell the influence of one or the other in the song. So Paul McCartney probably wrote that himself. The song's kind of fairly simplistic in terms of the words, but very emotive. And it's sung very well, but in a sort of pop ballady way. So that's how it comes across, I think, from the Beatles. When you talk about Angelina, it's a kind of different sort of feel. I mean, you've got that colourful background to start with. I mean, she sat in a shopping trolley. How do you sit in a shopping trolley and sing like that? I mean, that's the first. I mean, you're all hunched up with your legs pulled up and you're having to sing a song. And you're just thinking, how? And then she sort of builds the song. It's like she's emotional right from the outset. You can tell there's amazing voice control. And she does it like it's a lived experience. Like when you listen to the Beatles, it's got a different feel. But with her, it sounds like a lived experience. Like she's actually emoting exactly what she's feeling going through that situation. And I think that actually happens. So I think you'd probably call it, what, a stellar performance?
I call it a trolley performance.
Yeah, yeah. Right. It really is. It's so good. Her voice is so rich. It's so deep. And she does it in such a nice, controlled way. And it sounds really pleasant. Everything she does, she makes her own, and it ends up being an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And you think, well, if we think back now, my first introduction to her was like probably many other people, with Bohemian Rhapsody. Most people I see comment on that, and then they sort of go from there to whatever it is that they decide to watch from there. Now, from my point of view, I just started from the beginning, that with Norway's Got Talent during the lockdown, and I was sat in front of the screen and I was watching Got Talent programs, and YouTube just presented this one, and I'd never seen it before, and I thought, oh, I'll watch it, just see what it's like. And I just thought, what? It's like you're blown away immediately. And I thought, right, I've got to find out. 13 years old at that. And then they were saying, oh, she won Norway's Got Talent at 7. I'm thinking, 7? How can you win a Got Talent program at 7? And so I just went back and looked it all up on YouTube and went through. Watching Angelina Jordan's just like, it's like something completely different. It's so different to anything I've ever heard before. If I was on a desert island and someone said to me, you can only have one person's songs, I'd be thinking, well, you could only take Angelina Jordan's, because she's done more than probably 150 songs, many of them covers, some great originals. And how many singers do you actually watch that you love? Doesn't matter what it is, David Bowie, the Beatles, whatever it may be, and you actually love that many songs to that degree. I love Elton John, but I like maybe 15 to 20 of his songs that I really like. Yeah. If I watch the Rolling Stones, I like maybe 20 to 30 songs that I really like. If I watch the Beatles, I love the Beatles. I probably like a lot more of their songs than others. So I might like 50 to 100 songs of the Beatles that I really love. Do you mean? Because there's some songs, for example, on the White Album, I'm less fond of. But when it comes to Angelina Jordan, every song she produces, and then what you've got to remember is, on top of that, she's doing all these TikToks as well. And when you do that, and there's loads of very short performances, you can think, my word, imagine if she actually produced those as well and did the full versions of the songs.
The thing that strikes me, listening to the Beatles and then listening to Angelina Jordan just like that, what strikes me is, wow, she can change anything into a jazz version.
Yes, she can.
You don't think it's possible because it's such a standard pop classic yesterday, but she can make it jazzy in a way that almost defies imagination.
I like most genres of music, pretty well across the board. But I was never really much of a fan of jazz.
Yeah.
But I am now.
Yeah.
But only because of Angelina Jordan.
Yeah.
And only her version. I mean, it's like people say, oh, I'd now have this version now over that version of somebody's songs. I don't like to put people down in that way, because I think that people who do the originals do a great job of those originals, which is why we like them. We like the originals. We love them. But when Angelina Jordan does it, you just think, wow, it's very hard to go back to the other song, even though I'd still listen to the other song. I'd love to have a playlist, the 150, 180, 200, however many songs she's done. I'd love to have a playlist that had all of those on it. And I wish that she would just produce an anthology with all of that.
There is, Rusty Shackelford has a playlist of all 185 of her performances. He has that on his YouTube channel. Let's move on, Byran. And the next song we will hear that they both sing in common is Here Comes the Sun.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right.
Here comes the been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright.
Yeah, when you see the first one, you see the Beatles doing that. It's great. It's very uplifting, and it could be about anything, about anybody. Very pop oriented. One of those kind of songs that everybody can bop along to, that sort of thing. But Angelina's, I mean, obviously she did that in conjunction, I believe, with the Norwegian Refugee Council.
Yeah.
So that was done in a way where it was like promoting refugees to be given homes, and so you can tell that the upbeat element of it there. And again, she still managed to put a little bit of that jazzy feel into the way she does the song. It still comes out in most of what she does. But yeah, it's so good. It's possible in a situation like that to like both. They're both good versions, and I like them both. But I love the fact that that was done with a specific purpose, and it has a very good feel about it for that reason, I think.
Yeah. We have a couple of songs to listen to. But before we do that, I want to talk about Beatlemania compared to Angelina Jordan mania, or we'll just call it AJ mania. And although on one level, there's no reason why Angelina Jordan mania could not be the equal of Beatlemania, it's most unlikely. I cannot imagine her filling stadiums the same way the Beatles did. She's more in a quiet, she's more subtle. For her fans, we are moved and we are energized and we're as excited by her as the teenage girls were about the Beatles 60 years ago. It is 60 years ago, Beatlemania.
I know. It's a long time, isn't it?
There are so many different levels of stardom and fame. And also there's so many different types of mania. When we interview your daughter, we can hear the perspective of how a teenager views Angelina Jordan. But the hope is that she will catch on like wildfire, whether it's from one of her singles or from one of her albums. The other thing is, the Beatles did not really get fame and fortune within 3 or 4 months. They released Love Me Do in 62, but they didn't really perform in Shea Stadium until 64. So that was 2 years in building up. So once Angelina Jordan releases her album, within 2 years, she really might hit the big time.
Yeah, I think that's highly possible. I mean, the album we're hoping is going to come out later in the year. It sounds like it is. Sounds like she's definitely been working on new music. I'd like to think that she might include some new music and maybe the odd cover here or there, because I mean, some of the covers that she does are so amazing. It's very hard to see her not doing it. And it would probably be a missed opportunity. Suspicious Minds is so good. Why wouldn't you include that on an album? But then again, we're not her management team, so we're not deciding on whether or not she should include it. She's built up, for the last 10 years, she's built up quite a following on the various different medias. So she's obviously got a lot of people who like her. And a lot of people commented on the Norway concerts about the grey hair and white hair you could see in the audience, because a lot of people are older. But I was there. My thought on that is that I think what they forget is that a lot of people like me are those people who have seen 100, 200 artists over the years and loved them all. They're all amazing in their own way. Adele's amazing. Rihanna's amazing. They're all really great. But nobody can sing the songs from such a lot of different genres of music in the way that she does. Some people are in a particular groove. You're a rock band, or you sing pop songs, or you sing country music, or whatever. She does it all. So it's one of those things where, yes, people might take a while to get used to her.
Byran, the last 2 songs we will listen to, they're not the same song. They're not a duplication. But what we will do is we will listen to a Beatles song and then an Angelina Jordan song where they both are about loss and longing. And we will compare. When John Lennon wrote Julia, it is a tribute to his mother. And his mother died when he was 17 years old. And she was crossing the street and she was hit by a car. And this is a very poignant song written by John Lennon. And when Angelina Jordan sings If You Go Away, she is also singing about loss and longing. And let us hear these 2 songs, and then we can talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
Half of what I say is meaningless, but I say it just to reach you, Julia. 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 Ocean child calls me, so I sing a song of love for Julia. Seashell eye, windy smile calls me, so I sing a song of love.
If you go away on this summer day, then you might as well take the sun away. All the birds that flew in the summer sky when our love was new and our hearts were high, when the day was young and the night was alone, and the moon stood still till the night bird song. If you go away, if you go away, if you go away.
To me, when I listen to the difference between those two, I love that Beatles song, Julia. I think it is absolutely beautiful. And for me, it's the arrangement. And if I knew anything about music, I would probably say it's the minor chords which bring out the sadness. But John Lennon's voice doesn't capture the sadness and the longing the way Angelina's voice does. And for me, it's what she captures in her voice compared to John Lennon's voice, which for me is the biggest difference between those two.
I look at that song by John Lennon as though he's kind of reaching out to the beyond, basically. It's almost like a love letter to his lost mum. Yeah. I mean, and you can understand that. It's very poetic and it's done with feeling. There's no doubt about it. The words are certainly done with feeling. I think in some ways it's almost like he's doing it as though maybe that performance was just as he just come up with the song, as opposed to thinking about how much feeling to put into it. I'm not saying that he might not have maybe at some later date, if he decides to re-record it, maybe put that feeling into it, you know, to try and get that. But Angelina Jordan's version is just a different level in that sense. I mean, I love the Rusty Shackelford video. I mean, that's really good. I mean, I've obviously watched that a number of times, you know, the whole way through. So it's only when you see later on, when she really raises it, that you realize the level that she can actually go to. But again, it seems like a lived experience. Well, how can you be 10 or 11 or whatever she was at the time and live that experience? You can't. And I just think back to, you know, I think back to my daughter being at school, and you think about the years, you know, when they're in school and you say, right, now this means she would have been in year 6 or 7 in that respect. You think, if I'd heard someone sing like that at the school and someone had said, right, this person's amazing, they're going to sing, I'd have been absolutely gobsmacked, I think. I'd have been completely off my chair. But, you know, she is just so good. But we expect it now. You know, if you looked at that period when she was doing songs, she was doing some amazing songs during that time, you know, like Feeling Good and Every Time We Say Goodbye. But when you think about all the songs she was doing then, she was just, her voice was amazing. Her interpretation is amazing. And you just think, how? And that's what I think the fans are thinking. How can you do it? And that's why she's got such a following, and it's already there.
Well, let's hope that AJ Mania becomes a household word and that she can go from strength to strength. And you and I, each of us in our own little way, try to promote her, and we talk about her. Another English expression for you, we think she's the bee's knees.
Absolutely. I just think she'll get a big following. I've no doubt about it. And it will be a following that will stick with her, you know, for a very long time. And I mean, look at us. We've stuck with the Beatles for 60 years. So why not? And the thing that amazes me, I mean, she's only just turned 17. her voice is still developing. To me, if it stayed as it was, we'd be thinking, great, it's going to be fantastic forevermore. But it's going to get better. You know what I mean? I mean, even better. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I cannot imagine that. But it's not only her voice, it's her interpretation, which is so unique and so special.
Yes, absolutely.
Byran, it's really been great walking down memory lane with you.
That's all right. Say hello to Pontus for me and keep up the good work on the Wrapped in a Warm Blanket podcast. They're really good.
Thank you, Byran.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.